All right, hello and welcome everyone to the 9th episode of ScriptChat Volume 1. It is the 13th of November, 2022. I'm your host, Tech Chariot. We are a little late today. We're a little bit after 17 GMT. We're still getting used to this. But I assure you, in terms of the time zone change, but I assure you that it is well worth the wait. You're going to have an awesome program today. So, on the schedule for today, we have question answering as always. We're going to be looking at lake spawn on maps like Kawasan and Four Lakes. And we could show you the trick behind how Kawasan was made. And then we can also talk about the possibility of more fair clocking for maps like Four Lakes. So that'll be our lesson of the day segment. And then finally, but certainly not least, and maybe not necessarily in that order, we'll be speaking with Henk de Supernerd. He is a Dutch random map scripter, and he will be sharing some of his creations with the community. So we have a lot going on today. It's some good stuff. And I think we're going to open it up with little text tricks for how to make something like this. So if we look at the lakes on Kawasan, we see that the number of lakes is equal to the number of players. Now, if we were to generate this on a larger number of players and for a larger map size, let's hit generate now. We will see the number of lakes change. We now have 4 lakes, but we also have 4 players. Now, let us try something else as well. Let's come up here to Diplomacy, and let's set player 1 on a team with player 3, player 2 on a team with player 4, player 3 considers player 1 an ally, and player 4 considers player 2 an ally. And let's try generating it with that diplomatic status. As you can see, the number of lakes is the same. It is not affected by diplomacy at all. So we'll come back here and we'll just set everybody enemies. Make sure that we don't get confused. Now let's try 6 players. We are looking at Kawasan by Krazini. I believe it was originally developed for some kind of Empire Wars tournament, but now it has appeared in the standard map pool. So again, we see that there are 6 pawns and 6 players. And of course, a defining feature of Kawasan, which is not that important for what we're talking about today, is this mound of berries in the center. So we hit generate, of course, and the clocking of the pawns could be different. The pawns could be somewhere else. Just wait for it to finish loading here, and you can see the pawns have moved, as have the players. So the game is capable of arranging these pawns in a circular manner, along with the players as well. And finally, generating it on a large size with 8 players, what's going on? We should confirm the same behavior we've been seeing as we've been adding players. Man, it's taking a long time to generate. That's very unusual for a standard map. Although Cresini does have lots of invisible placeholders on his maps, but still. Okay, so here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Something like that. So our mini-map was blocked by Branadrog playing Age of Empires. But as you can see now, yes, you have 8 lakes. So there's always a lake between 2 players. So it almost looks like the game makes this pie shape, if you will, divided up for 8 players, and then it's inserting lakes in between each of the players here. So let us, for a moment, compare that to 4 lakes. So we come over here and we select 4 lakes, which is another standard map. It's a little bit, this is a little bit older of a map. I believe that this map was made maybe by the Prophet a long, long time ago. The lakes are bigger for 4 lakes, or at least for, yeah, I guess for the same, all other things being equal, the size of the map and such. But the player clocking and the teams may not necessarily depend on where the lakes are. Or let me put it another way, your team might have a back lake here, or your team might be clocked like this. This one looks pretty decent clocking here. The space in between these 2 players aligns pretty well with this lake. Space in between these 2 players aligns decently with this lake. But let's hit generate again to see if we can demonstrate that concept a little bit better. So 4 lakes instead of 2 lakes. Why is it 4 lakes? Well, because depending on where you spawn or where you end up, you may or may not be next to a lake, right? Like, could you imagine if this lake and this lake weren't here? Orange and blue would not have the option to fish. It would be somewhat unfortunate. But that's, I think, one of the largest complaints that I've heard about 4 lakes in team games is that the clocking of the teams does not necessarily agree with the positions of the lakes. And some players have a harder time getting to water than other players. Because of the symmetry of the lakes, I don't think that the clocking has nearly as large of an impact on an overall per team basis. But players like to plan it out, right? If they like to know, if I'm flank, I'm going to pick this civ because this civ has a good fishing bonus or whatever. And they may not be next to the lake, but they will have picked that civ anyway. So they're not able to predict whether or not they're going to be close to the lake with their civ choice and take best advantage of their civ bonuses. You'll also note that the lakes on 4 lakes are on the same elevation as the rest of the terrain. And so that makes ships more powerful relative to Kawasan. On Kawasan, the ships are downhill, so the ships do less damage, because ships are affected by hill bonuses. They do less damage, and they take additional damage from land units. Okay. So, is Kawasan an improvement over 4 lakes? Well, I think in many respects it is, in terms of fairness to lake to be able to access what's in the lakes. Like I said, on 4 lakes you might be very far away from a lake in either case, right? In this 4v4, green is pretty far away from a lake either way. And if he were flank, and let's say blue were flank, then this could be blue having access to fish while green doesn't really. However, again, yellow would be the other flank on that team, and he would be in the same position as green, if you will, in terms of being the flank that's far away, while orange has great access to fish because the fish are close by for orange. So it makes it very hard to predict and plan. In terms of Kawasan, you know that the lake is always going to be in between you, and you know what you can do. You know that whatever civ you pick, you'll be able to have access to the lake, no problem. So let's kind of show let's show how Kawasan achieves that then. 4 lakes is pretty standard. But I wanna actually show you guys what's going on here. So we're gonna do something very, very simple. We're gonna make ourselves I guess we could go in this random map scripts folder. Let's go into my workshop. Maybe we can test scripts and no, not that one. All right, let's just make ourselves a new map, and we'll call it Lake Demo. Okay, so we'll call it Lake Demonstration, and it's going to be a .rms file, and that's fine. So now, when we quit the main menu and we go back in, we should see Lake Demonstration as an option. Now it's not going to have anything, just going to be a blank sheet of grass. Lake Demonstration, here it is. Let's generate it. And as you can see, nothing. Okay. So we need to work on Lake Demonstration then. So we will add some code in to show you guys how these lakes are created. So here's an empty script file. You could literally do this alongside me if you wanted to, just to understand how it's done. So we're just going to call it Lake Demonstration. Today's date. Let's see. A ScriptChat lesson. Okay. So we want player setup, elevation generation, terrain generation, objects generation, and land generation, right here. Okay. So in our land generation, we're going to say that our base terrain is dirt. And now we're going to create land. And we're going to do it in land position 199. And the base size is going to be 3. Base terrain is going to be water. And land percent is going to be maybe 10. And we're going to do this 4 times. We're going to do it for each corner. Just to show you guys how to create 4 lands. In the corners, hit save, hit run. Okay. That's because we did not specify the correct, we want terrain type. There we go. I always get that mixed up. So here we have 4 basic lakes, right? Now, they're very, very organic in nature. If we wanted to make them more rounded, we could increase the base size, maybe from 3 to something like 10. We'll do that on 2 of them so that you can see the difference. Okay. See how this lake is a little bit more rounded? That's because it's using the base size properly. Let's see if we can tweak the land percent down too, maybe to 7%. You could go into the actual file and check to see what it is, but something that would reasonably look like 4 lakes. Looks like we still need to grow our base size and shrink our land percentage. So maybe land percent 3 and base size 15. All right, there we go. That looks a little bit better. We could even grow our base size a little bit more than that. Maybe say 20. Okay, and looks like this one does not want to behave properly. So I'll tell you what, let's come up here to player setup and let's do the less buggy behavior version 1. And that should really help us out. Okay, so now when we dial up the land percentage, it will be total. It's not going to be in addition to. So now we can come over here to land percent. We can boost it up to maybe 10%. And it should be pretty fair. Okay. 10 might be a bit too much. Maybe 8%. And in the space of, there we go. It's fun. We have a little island here. 6. Sorry, I'm something of a perfectionist, you guys know. Hey, Seabass, welcome. We're just showing how to get a basic 4-lake structure here. So we're going to call this good for now. I think this is fun. This is a little bit more jagged, and who knows, the players will probably complain, oh, I had to walk so far to get to my lake. But here's the idea, right? And now to do the player lands, it's simple. We can come over here and we can say create player lands. And we'll do circle radius 30, 0. And we'll do base size maybe 10. And land percent, so we'll do base size a little bit larger than 10, maybe 12. Land percent is going to be 4. And, terrain type will be dirt. No, terrain type will be grass. We want you guys to be able to see it. Same dude, 23 is here. Hello, hello. So we're just showing how to get some basic 4 lakes behavior here. You can see this player is a little bit kind of close to this pond, perhaps. So we could pull it in so that difference is less noticeable. And we'll also decrease the base size maybe to 8. And hit generate. Okay. And then we can also grow these player lands a bit. So we will maybe land percent 10. Now you could go in, like I said, you could check the actual script file to see what numbers they're using that are sort of ideal. But this is the concept. And the idea was that if you had a relatively symmetrical organization of lakes, that even if both players ended up down here, they still could reasonably access lakes, or yeah, pretty close, right? And to see where the center of these player lands are, we could go over here to Objects Generation, and we could have create object town center, and then set place for every player, and then find closest. Just like that. So you guys can see where the town centers are. And they'll be exactly on the center of the land here. Just kind of expected. So I've been talking about making a version of Four Lakes that has a guaranteed clocking. I think that's sort of beyond the scope of the video today. But just for now, that's how it's done. It's very simple, and it's literally these 5 lines of code. There might be some other embellishments on it. They might do like an elevation or something like that. But this is the idea. So you'll notice that if we go over here, it's very small too. And we go to 8 players, and then we go to map, and we want to generate it on a large map size. We'll hit generate here. And you can see, again, same style. Now, there might be some conditionals in there that like move the players further away from the center, because this does look pretty close. But this also kind of looks fun too. I don't know. I like it. I think it's interesting. Like, look at this. Look at this crazy lake right here. Isn't that fun? Oh, the good old days. When scripts were like 20 lines long and maps were interesting and unfair. Oh, that's alright. I suppose it's probably better that it's a little bit more fair nowadays. But you get the idea. For a giant size, we could have a conditional that basically makes the base size equal to, say, 40 now. So you don't have such weird, wild, organic lakes like this. You know, hit generate with 40, and it's going to look a lot more reasonable, right? It's going to look more rounded, because that base size is kind of like a guaranteed square that it has to grow from. So if we wanted to do Kawasan, though, let's take all of this and comment this out. Because Kawasan is different, right? So we've commented that out. Save it. Then we hit go, and we confirm that, yeah, nothing happens. Or it should be that nothing happens. Uh-oh. I guess maybe it's probably still placing the town centers even though there aren't any player lands, which is kind of interesting. Alright, so let's come up here. And first things first, let's create some player lands. And we'll do that outside of our comment. And we'll see if we can get those to generate, which they should generate just fine. Okay, there they are. We might consider increasing them in radius a little bit, maybe up to something like 30 again. Okay, so we push the player lands out a bit. I'm actually going to push them out a little bit more, just to tweak that. Again, when you do this, if you wanted to make a map similar to Kawasan, you could set the numbers to whatever you wanted them to be. But the important part is that we're basically going to go in and we're just going to do it again. So we're going to create player lands again, and it's very simple. We can set the radius equal to the same thing if we want, or we could change it to something different. And we're going to set the terrain type equal to water. So hit save and then generate it. And as you can see, now we have these lakes all in between the players. The game is trying to create 2 sets of player lands. Now, it can only place town centers on one of them because town centers cannot be placed on water. So if we went into, think about it this way, if we went in and we were placing this town center as a second object, then we would get town centers on all of these player lands here. But the lakes in Kawasan are actually just player lands. So let's just to show that example, let's declare an invisible placeholder object. 647, or we could even do a flag. That would actually probably be easier to visualize. So we're going to create object flag A. And then we're going to do second object town center. So as you can see, there is now a town center, because whenever you place second object, it disregards any terrain restrictions. It's a great way to bypass terrain restrictions for certain objects. If you want to place objects on stone, or you want to overcome the barrier of water that's blocking you from placing an object, then that's the way to do it. But just note that because these lakes are player lands, that anything it tries to put on the grass, it will try to put on the lakes as well. The reason that it didn't succeed the first time is because you can't place town centers directly on water. So one more note, actually. Let's go back to this. So again, go back to removing that second object. Town center does not appear here. Let's place some boar. Create object boar. Set place for every player. Set Gaia object only. And then we're going to do a min distance to players, 12, and a max distance to players. And let's do 6 and 7. So let's hit generate. We should see that each player gets a boar. However, you will note that there are boars appearing here as well. Uh-oh. That's no good. You don't want boars appearing on the water. They do appear on the grass, which is correct, but they cannot appear on the water. So you have a couple of options for this one. You could come here and you could restrict the terrain placement of the boar. So you could say terrain to place on grass. And now the boar cannot appear on this water. Now there is a chance that if a patch of grass is within 6 to 7 of the center of this water, that the boar could appear there, but that is not possible because the base size of these lakes is too large. So if we go and look, our base size is 8, which is larger than 6 to 7. So therefore, there is no chance that the land from this player land that is grass could grow in to be within 6 or 7 tiles of this lake. So therefore, this technique makes sure that the boar never spawns on this lake. The other thing that we could do is we could mess with terrain ID, or land ID. So we believe but there are some caveats. So this is the most effective way. Now, what if we were to try to place gold? Create object gold. Do we need to restrict the terrain to grass? Let's check it out. Yes, it looks like we will. So this is something to be cautious of. There are some quirks to consider. Now, let's say that we wanted to do a fish instead. So now we've got fish being placed on this grass, which I don't really understand. And it's also being correctly placed on this on the lake, which we should expect. I'm not really sure why the fish are ignoring the terrain restrictions. It seems like they should not be doing that. But again, we can come in here, we could say terrain to place on water. And then we could also do number of groups if we wanted to do lots of them. Hey, so what 184? Hello, hello. We could do 12 groups and maybe temp min distance group placement is 4. So there you go. Probably shows you how the fish are created in Kawasan as well. So a very powerful tool terrain to place on is. But hopefully that gives you guys an idea of how those two different types of maps are created. Cruzzini is using a second set of create player lands to make the lakes as well, so that they are always in between the players, which I think is a pretty cool feature. So hopefully you learned something from that. We are going to move on to our next segment now. We're going to chat with Hank the Super Nerd. He's got some things to show and tell. This is kind of the segment where we bring in a dignified map scripter and we ask him about his work. So let me step away real quick, and when I come back, we'll bring Hank into it, and Hank will show off some of what he's been working on. So really looking forward to that. All right, we're back. Thank you for sticking with us. Let us bring Hank the Super Nerd into TV voice now. Hank is a very famous figure in the random map scripting community, and we are pleased that he was interested in coming on the show today. He has created most of the nothing maps for the T90 community games. He is the owner of the Random Map Scripting server, which is the place to go with random map scripting questions. I will update the description of this video to include a link to that server. I usually try to, sometimes I forget. And he has also made maps for many of these S-tier competitions, and some of his maps have actually been featured in the competitions. You may have seen them. Hank, welcome to ScriptChat. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So Hank is from the Netherlands, in case you guys are wondering, and I think he plays around a 1500 level or something like that, 1v1. I'm not 100%
Yeah,
sure.
I don't play much 1v1s, but I do play quite a bit of team games. A lot with friends in a custom lobby, but sometimes also the ranked queue.
All right, so he's definitely staying sharp and he's staying with the times and he knows what people are complaining about on maps and what he can do to be their hero. So Hank, what do we got today?
Well, actually, I haven't. Last year, I'm quite busy, so I haven't been working on that many big projects anymore. All these nothing maps that I used to make, that's been quite a while ago. But now and then I find some time to create some maps that I would enjoy playing, or maps that are usable for a tournament, for example.
So you got them up on your screen. Let's show them off. Talk about them.
Yeah, how do I do this? Share screen.
Yep. So you can share. You should be able to share your screen in the Discord, and then I'll bring it up on my screen, and we'll talk all about it. Because that's something I find the scripting community has lots of experts that'll show you how to make a map, but it can be very hard. Maybe not necessarily for Hank, but just as I say this to the general audience, if there's any scripters that are watching that want to come on the show, you don't have to be Hank the Super Nerd to come on this show. You can be anybody. We would love to learn about what you're doing and what you're making. We're just really excited to have Hank. I think he kind of felt sorry for us. He kept on posting in his server saying, "Hey, does anybody want to come on ScriptChat?" And he says, "All right, I'll finally do it." All right.
All right. Does it work, the sharing of the screen?
Yep, we can see your screen. I'm going full screen mode here. And we are looking at, what is this?
This is Step. This is just a normal map that you can play. It's I think it's not really that often appearing in the ranked map pool, but I believe this is one of the official maps of the AoE 2DE.
Yeah, that sounds right. It's basically a standard map with extra wood in the back, and you happen to not start with a town center, but extra villagers.
Yeah, that's right. But I have also a version which is called Team Step. All of my maps somehow appear double. I think it's because I created a folder within my within the map folder.
I think it has to do with like having a mod and then also having it in your random map scripts folder.
Oh yeah, that could be. But you can see there is nothing really changed about this map. So that's because I'm still loading it in the editor without setting diplomacy. So I guess we have to set diplomacy. So there is actually two teams. Not sure if you have to click all these buttons or not.
Oh, really? Oh, let's try it without it. I've been always clicking them.
Yeah, me too.
That would be really convenient if you didn't have to. I know that the guys have some kind of scenario file that they've passed around.
Well, I'm clicking now to set team 1 to 4 in one team. So it will be the wrong colors, I guess. But
that team has 5 on it. Player 5 that you just did.
Oh yeah.
He wants to be enemy with 4, unless he's planning a betrayal of his own team, playing both sides.
Right. And all I did is actually just copy the same map, but instead of having random placement, it will be team together placement. and it will spawn the players together. So you might know the map Lombardia, or that's a pretty well-known one. There you also have these players together.
Yep.
And I did that for a bunch of standard maps. So back to Team Step. Where is it?
So let's talk about this one, because I think this is pretty fascinating. What impact does it have on the gameplay to have the teams grouped in this manner?
Well, first of all, the classic role of being a flank and a pocket will become a little bit less distinct. Like orange is still quite far away from yellow, so they can both choose like, oh, do I want to play archers or do I want to go scouts? Because normally you have mobility from the pocket. You have scouts from the pocket and archers from the flank.
Mm-hmm.
And now it opens up a little bit more variety in that regard. Also, the distance between both teams are a bit larger compared to a normal generation, because players are so bunched together.
Now,
And
these are properties
yeah.
that you could adjust independently, right? Like you could take these teams and you could actually pull them closer together if you wanted to make up for the fact that they're grouped like that.
Yeah, but I do kind of like it, the maps having a little bit more space between the teams. I think it's a little bit more friendly to like chill games, boom a little bit. You can even do a big team wall on a map like this.
Mm-hmm.
And then the games will often go late, but in the late game you have to still secure a corner for trade, for example. On this map maybe not so, but the Lombardia, for example, we all know.
There are not any wolves, if I remember correctly. There are no wolves in the center on step. Is that correct?
No, on step it's there should not be wolves. I don't think there is any map without TC start where you have wolves.
Oh, I've made several maps like that.
Yeah.
Because I enjoy
it can
the
be
chaos.
tricky then, no? Right?
He. There should not be any wolves. So that's the other thing too, is if there aren't any wolves, then people like to send their villagers forward and lame the enemy's boars. So if your teams were closer together, that could be a lot more prevalent.
Yeah, for sure. And like I mentioned, I have made a bunch of these theme maps. Also one which is maybe a map that is not so well known, but I think it's played now in a tournament that is going on. I can't remember if that's correct, but it's called Border Dispute.
Team Border Dispute.
And normally you all start very close together, but in a circle. And now you start all together in range of each other's DC.
Oh wow, this is quite confusing and very chaotic. Where is this being played? Are the pros playing this?
Yeah, I don't want to talk.
It hasn't been
lies.
announced yet. All right, it hasn't.
No. I think I saw something, a YouTube video of a pro or whatever, playing it, and I thought maybe it was in one of the tournaments. But I think this map is from very long ago. Maybe it won a competition. Because I have just blatantly copied it, maybe from War is Coming or something, but it's an old map.
Okay, and what you did was you clustered the teams a little bit, the teams a little bit closer together, whereas before they were a little bit more uniformly distributed around a circle around the center.
Yeah, they would be if I would change all these back to teams.
Or you could show the original Border Dispute map probably, if you have it.
Yeah, I don't think I have it saved. Oh yeah, I made a remake This is the original one, I believe. But I had tweaked a little bit about the golds and the stones, and there were some stragglers missing or some pores missing. But this is how the map normally looks like. So in a sense, with the teams, with all the players of the team spawning together, you at least are not in range of your enemy completely.
So Same Do 23 says, we played Border Dispute a lot in the NC zone. Do you know what that is, Hank? What is NC zone?
I think NC zone is it's a separate website where you could meet other players and balance teams together. So you could play team games together, and it would balance out teams based on your rating and on your performance on different maps. And we use this. I think I've played a few times on that as well. We used that in the times where we didn't have ranked matchmaking. So then it was sometimes difficult to balance the teams, and you could use it.
So when you remade Border Dispute into grouped by team, what did you want to accomplish? What improvements to the gameplay were your objective to do that? Was the feeling that it would be a little bit more chill because one team wouldn't have to worry about walking under the other team's town center arrow fire as easily? So on this one, like, you build a farm on the wrong side of your town center, they can shoot your villager, right?
Yeah. Well, it was not so much about making a chill map, because I think this map will always be chaotic. But I was just thinking, which maps that are somewhat well known or standard are interesting with teams together, and most of the maps that I have made are very chill because you're so far away. So I was like, let's also add one where players are spawning closer together.
So it's a little bit more of an open-ended kind of thing. You may not necessarily have been going into it with a specific objective. It was more like, let's just give this a try and see what the players make of it. See what the players come up with for it. Now, to be clear, let me ask this other question. What do you have to do to change the map to do the group spawn like this?
It's very easy, and I might be able to show that as well.
To help the viewers understand, if they want a grouped by team setup for their map, what could they do to make it possible?
I'm gonna try share my stream. How do I do this?
So you could share a window, I think, instead of an application.
There we go.
Yeah. Here we go. Can you zoom in on that? I can't read anything. Small. Yeah. Here we go. Okay.
So I made the map pack out of all these maps, and we can take a look at one of them. So do you have any specific one you wanna watch?
Let us look at Team Step.
Team Step. So this section is when Team Step is generated in this map pack. And I think I actually just completely copied this map. I didn't really have to change anything. And all I did is, instead of having the first line random placement, it would now be grouped by teams.
Yep.
And that's it.
That's it?
That's it, yeah.
So it's really easy. You can do it too, guys, I think, is the moral of the story here. What you basically did, in the focus of your effort, was not some massive undertaking where you rewrote 300 lines of code or whatever to change the grouping of the players. It was just a simple line, and then to organize it for a bunch of maps.
And then it will become bug fixing and tweaking, because sometimes even the standard maps, they sometimes have some some features where they are like something is not being generated completely correctly, but because of that, it changes how the map is looking, and we are all getting used to that. But then if you remove or change the way how players spawn, you suddenly have more space available, for example, and then you see, they are spawning extra wolves or whatever, and then I might decide to tweak that.
Well, I think the obvious difference would be that you would have more neutral resources spawn in maps that are grouped by team, and it may be more difficult to spawn player-assigned resources because players are closer to their teammates, which means that there's more overlap in the legal locations where you could place resources.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
That's also if I change my screen again.
Yep. So it's easy to do, but there would be a lot to follow up from that effort to make sure that everybody gets all of their resources properly.
Yeah. Do you see the Age of Empires screen again, or
Not
still
yet. Nope.
Okay.
We're still looking at the code, but you can change from group by team, or from random placement to group by team.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have anything to do with zones.
Oh yeah, zones do affect it because sometimes you need to have the zone. Where is it? It's not in this map, I think. But for example, on Team Islands. Team Islands. There is Team Islands, but there is also Islands. But if I want to have the prefix team for it, it becomes a bit cluttered. So in Team Islands, you need to have the player land needs to have a zone, set zone by team. If you don't have that, then all players will have their own island.
Yep. And then you also have grouped by team. So
yeah,
I think that the way that Team Islands is done nowadays is random placement, but it's grouped by team. So the team islands are, as a result, really large, and they take up like most of the map. Whereas it was originally done with a very large base size, but it was grouped by team instead.
Okay, so nowadays on I want to show back my Age of Empires screen. Why doesn't it?
You could probably end the stream and restream. That might be the easiest way to do it.
Yeah.
To stream the game.
All right.
So you're going to show the difference between modern Team Islands and kind of the more classic Team Islands that you remastered.
Yeah, so yeah, exactly. This is Team Islands, we know, and it's a huge island. And actually, the players are still in a circle. You see the screen now?
Yep, we can see your screen, and we can see that the players are still circularly arranged. Even though there are triangular pie slices, ultimately the arrangement of the players is still circular.
So if I wanted to change that, all the players would be together on a quite small island, actually. So I think I did quite a bit of tweaking with the team islands, where I actually have team islands with all the players together in a team.
Team islands.
Team islands. And I decided to not have the players too close together, because it's nice that you still have a bit of wood lines to take and a little bit of space to build.
Mm-hmm.
Because on a water map, you're quite limited on building space often. So I increased the distance between the players, and the only thing that influences the distance between these players is actually with this large base size that you were talking about.
Yep.
So setting a large base size means also if you use team together, it will influence how far apart these players were. So on the earlier map I showed, the border dispute, I had the base size like virtually nothing, so DCs could almost touch each other.
Yep. So
and then on this Team Islands map, I decided it would be nice to have a lot of water in the middle, so you really feel like you're on an island, and I think it will play out quite different. Way more water on this map than on the normal Team Islands.
So if folks pay close attention, you'll see that if you drew a line between the center of the map and the flanks on each team, and then a line between the center of the map and like flank and pocket, the angle between flank and pocket is smaller than the angle between flanks of different teams. Whereas on Team Islands, as we know it today, that is not the case. They're approximately equal. So it's clear that you've made that adjustment, and that these Team Islands are more classic, grouped by team. So to be clear, the only way to adjust the spacing between players when they are grouped by team is the base size. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. So here in border disputes, every team would have like a base size of 3 or something. So because bases can never overlap, so that's why the players are spread out. I think if you have base size 0, all the TCs would almost spawn at the same location. I haven't tried that out, but
they'd be right on top of each other. That would be one wild game. Now, that can be somewhat restricting, though, depending on what you want to do. Can't be interesting to see what folks could come up with that. But the larger the base size, right, the more likely it is to impinge upon neutral lands that you have somewhere else on the map. So if you want a map that is grouped by team, but you don't want you want the teammates to be kind of far apart, perhaps more similar to Lombardy or something, but maybe you had a lake in the middle. You could struggle with the bases for those teams intersecting with the lake in order to be large enough to get the teammates as far apart as you want them. What are we looking at here?
This is Team Oasis. So it's the Oasis, and then players are spawned together. I was thinking maybe this map shows that issue because the distance is somewhat large, so the base size would be around 12 or something, and I thought maybe it would interfere with the forest, but on this particular map on Oasis, players are spawned quite far away from the center, so there's no interference.
And the forest is probably quite large and able to handle it as well. Do you have a team arena in there?
Yeah, I do. That one was also quite some tweaking to get the distances right and the walls to connect properly. And it's pretty funny because walls, normally they spawn all around one player, but if they touch a teammate, they would actually just connect.
Oh, really? I did not know that. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Any plan on doing a version of this where there is no back wall, similar to maybe Clown Arena?
Yeah, I don't know how to set that up properly. But the back wall is a little bit of an issue on this map because I didn't change that much. So the players still spawn with quite a big base size, so they don't touch each other, the TCs, but also some extra land percent. And I think that should be a little bit smaller because now the free land of this player, Purple, for example, has no way to get into the back. So every extra land will be forced out, and sometimes you get these big pockets behind the players.
I see. You might actually, on this one, you might be able to get away with moving the players a little bit closer together. How far is that? What's that distance between teams here on Team Arena? It seems like it's quite far.
Check it a little. So I have set the base size 10 for this. So that will be 10 in both directions.
But in terms of the radius from the center,
Oh, from
the teams seem to be quite far apart.
yeah. So that's that would be by having placement radius, I think, right? Circle radius is 38.
So it's quite large.
It's larger than a normal arena, I think, because arena you spawn quite close together. Let me check. Oh, you're also quite far out from the middle.
I had Weniger on the show a few weeks ago, and he was talking about how the pockets on Arena don't really do much except boom, and then if their flank needs scouts, they make scouts and just boom slightly slower because of how far away they are. I also know that Weniger was kind of looking at some different options for like a team game clown style tournament that they were considering doing. So Team Arena maybe could be interesting for that if the teams were a little bit closer together.
Yeah, because now I have played it quite a bit with friends, Team Arena as well. And it's just you can still be aggressive because dropping a castle on your enemy will also drop a castle on all the other enemies. So that can be quite effective. But the distance to walk is so far. So like Trushing or feudal archers, it's going to be very slow to arrive.
That, and it would give you more space in the back too. If Green were ever pressured, for example, he'd have more room to boom in the back if the players' bases were moved closer to the center. Ultimately, your map, whatever you want to do with it is cool. It's just some thoughts that I had while looking at it. But to be able to adjust the resource spawns and all that work is non-trivial to make up for the fact that players are crammed a little bit closer together since they're grouped by team now. But it's definitely really cool to look at. I think the way that the walls in the back are done in terms of like preventing the walls in the back from spawning are they have a different player. Oh, that one didn't even. It's like that one didn't connect with the edge. So
This
you may
is
want
the
to be
issue
careful
you
about that.
sometimes get.
Maybe a little bit more tweaking then. But I think the way that Crazzini did it was he had invisible placeholders on a different type of terrain in the center. And then he had some rocks avoid those placeholders by a certain distance, but be spawned at the same distance from the town center as the walls would normally. And so the rocks would appear in the back of the base because they were avoiding the clearing terrain. And then he set the HP of those rocks equal to 0 at the start. So the walls would spawn. They can't spawn over the rocks, so they would just spawn in the front, and then the rocks would get killed at the start of the game. So it would leave that opening in the back.
And other objects that would normally spawn in the back, they would also not spawn there then?
They wouldn't be able to spawn exactly where the wall is, but they could spawn on either side of it.
Yeah. I think this team arena was actually the reason I started this project of making all these team maps. Because I played with my friends, I played a lot of Lombardia, which is this classic green map where you have teams together. And then I also wanted to like, what if you're walled at the start of the game? So I came up with the idea of Lombarina, which is the combination of the two. And it's very, very close. Lombarina. If it's in here, maybe I've removed it already. No, here it is, Lombarina.
Let's
and
do
I think
it.
It's very close to this, but with some different distances. So maybe this is more what you were envisioning.
Yep. Interesting.
Yeah, so this fixes the issue where there is too much dead space in the back, and also the distance to the enemy is quite small. And I think you can easily do a monk rush or any of the classic clown strategies on this map because it's not too much more distance than you're used to.
Yeah, and it's sort of interesting, kind of a double-edged sword, right? Because on the one hand, you can monk rush somebody, and you could kill somebody and have them try to flee their base. And on traditional arena, they can't go anywhere if you block them off. Like I've had games I've both watched and played where somebody will wall somebody else into their little dugout pit in the forest, and then they'll monk rush them
Mhm.
to death, and they literally cannot run away. And this one you can run away, but where are you going to go, right? There's very
Yeah.
little space. You can't reboom between two of your other players that are doing well because that space doesn't exist.
Yeah, and also classic situation on arena. If you're getting rushed, you might get so hardly hit that you want to run away your villagers. Normally on arena, you might not even make it with your villagers. Here you can, but indeed you are taking away all of the build space of your opponents, of your teammates. So maybe there is not even a place to run to.
Definitely be very interesting to try out. That's for sure. Welcome, Ja, to the chat. We got, for those of you that are just joining now, we got Hank the Super Nerd joining us in chat, and he is showing us some of his team maps that he's created. Team Salt Marsh, Team Islands, Team Black Forest, Team Chaos Pit. Look at that. How many
Yeah,
of
I
these
think
did you end up doing? How many total are there?
um, it's 25 roughly,
Oh,
including some maps that are because I in the map pack I also included some maps that standardly spawn with the teams together. So that would be, for example, Team Modes, which is a official map. Could find it. Team Modes. And I just included a copy of that map just straight into the map pack because I didn't have to tweak anything here.
mm-hmm.
And yeah, in total it will be 25 or 26 maps, I think.
Now, some of these maps, like Team Moats, for example, there are shallows here. Just to make sure that the folks in chat understand, those shallows are created with connection generation. So
Yeah.
the team lands are actually probably placed as water, I would imagine, and then grass is layered on top of it, and then connections are done to replace some of the water with shallows. So on some of these team maps, like Team Black Forest, Team Moats, or maybe like even Team Islands, where the teammates are connected by a road, that's all done with connection generation. It's one of the niche applications of connections. I don't seem to use connections very often, but then again, I use a ton of lands, so the connections just break. But in case folks are wondering how to make their own team maps, that's one of the features. So don't kill yourself trying to create that road any other way. That's a connection road right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Also, Team Black Forest, for example, has this connection with every Black Forest map. The passage to your enemy is a connection. And
Mhm.
I like this one in particular with the Team Black Forest because sometimes you end up with one connection connecting the enemy team. Sometimes it's two, sometimes it can be three. So it still has this Black Forest feel of some kind of random layout where there might
Mhm.
be multiple parts that you have to wall, but you're somewhat close to your allies, so you fight more as one team instead of one flank versus the other flank.
Yeah, and that element of unpredictability, in my opinion, is very good for the game in general. For math, players hate it. Well, maybe some
Yeah,
players like it, but it's more preparation, it's more stressful to play. But it's more fun for us, the viewers, right? Because we're like, oh, is he going to scout that passageway? Is he going to know that his enemy can
yeah.
come in that way? We have we,
I
we've seen
think
some high level games before where it came down to not knowing what your opponent was going to do, or missing a scouting a passage in Black Forest. So it's
I
fun.
think in general, players also really enjoy the randomness in Black Forest when they play, and it might add something to the experience of, oh my god, I had such a lucky map. I could take all these 6 extra boars, or I had a crazy fish boom.
Hmm.
And if you always have the same map generation, then these instances won't occur anymore, and it doesn't feel that crazy anymore. But obviously, it's not fun if your enemy has all these extra boars and you're like, ah, shit, I only have wolves that I run into.
Yeah, so for those in chat that are wondering how Hank is able to group these teams, it's actually pretty simple. It's a simple group by team command. The tricky part is adapting the spacing of all of the resources to make sure that they spawn correctly.
Yeah. And maybe, I don't know how much time we have if we go through everyone, or maybe
we have as
a few
much
more.
time as you want, Hank. We are pleased that you're joining us today.
Yeah, maybe the question is more, how much time do I have?
Yep, that
because I
is
still,
a better question. And what do you want to show? Seems like we're doing a lot of good talking about these team maps here.
yeah.
Where can people find these team maps if they want
Yeah, I'm
to
still
play them with their friends? Still working on them?
still working on adding them to the workshop where you can download them on the official Microsoft stores. I haven't uploaded that many maps recently. Also, like I told, I don't have that much time anymore to build them. But also, when the E got released, I still had to get used to this workshop, and there was a lot of issues trying to upload maps. So I haven't really bothered that much recently. But yeah, I think this for sure can be a fun thing to upload, and people can play it with their friends or however they want to play it, and you can play the whole map pack as a. There is one map which is the random version, Team Together random, and it will just pick one of the 25 maps randomly, and you don't know which one you will get.
Or you could choose a map specifically.
Yeah,
which is what
you
we've
can
been
even.
looking at.
That's what I also do sometimes. If you go to a lobby, I can show you. I'll make just a normal lobby game. If you want to play with your friends, you can choose here. Instead of a single map, you can make a. I think you click. Well, it will be custom maps. Yeah, I think if you click the random, you can select multiple maps that you want. And then if you like to have a little bit of randomness, you could, for example, select the map pack. Where is it? I always get confused where it is. The map pack. And then you also select one that is your favorite one, say Team Yucatan. And then you have 50% chance that it will be Yucatan, and then 50% chance that it will be one of the other 25 maps. Mm-hmm. So you can customize a little bit how you, what kind of map you have in your randomness.
Yep, that's really cool.
But I think this is limited to like something like 8 maps or something. 10, I think this is. Yeah. So that's why I still have this map pack with all the 25 maps in there.
Oh, okay. That explains it then. I was wondering, why would he make a map pack with 25 maps when people could just select the options that they want on the menu in the lobby? So now I understand.
Right. I did close the scenario editor, so I have to set it up all again.
Teams all again.
Yeah.
Do you want to show us some of your other maps that you've created?
Ooh.
Do you have the time? We could always save that for a future episode of Script Chat if you want.
Yeah, I haven't been that actively working on anything. There is one thing that is in the works, and I can give you a sneak peek, maybe.
You saw it here first, folks. That's why you got to watch the show.
Yeah, I do like this is more of a community style map. This is the concept.
Oh,
You
look
would
at that.
obviously play it with 8 players. Players all spawn in this circular map, so it doesn't matter in which corner you spawn. And I think you should play this on free for all or on diplomacy. And the premise of the map is that you can trade with markets. This is the more complete version. Because if you have a team, how are you going to trade? If you trade from player purple to player red, the trade will go through the middle. But this map, you can also trade to the market in the middle, and there will be these caravanserai, which is a kind of new building from the Hindustanis that speeds up the trade.
Yep.
And they will make it even more attractive to trade to the middle. But yeah, of course, trading to the middle where everybody is trading, that invites aggression to the middle, and people will try to kill your trade cards running there. So that's the idea of this map.
I know some people that would absolutely love this map. Are the players spawn? The players are fixed spawn points in this case, right?
Yeah, this whole map is a pretty much fixed generation. I do have set up some code which randomize the position of the teams or the position of the individual player, but it will always be in this orientation.
Seems like maybe you could. I don't know because. Well, maybe you could if you could use connections to generate the configuration with a random player placements.
It's really tricky because the connections also will connect diagonally, and there is, as much as I know, there is not a way to set like all connections only go to the middle and don't go between other players.
What about like a second set of created player lands that has a terrain that has a very high connection cost? Yeah, even then, it would probably still do something stupid like go around it or something.
It will go around. You will get a mess with connections.
It's too bad connections aren't a little bit smarter. Seems like that would be a lot of fun. You know, it'd be a lot of fun too, is if terrains had pathing costs. Like if walking over a road was faster than walking over grass. Wouldn't that be neat?
Oh yeah.
Kind of like a modern video game.
Yeah, I have played with that idea as well of having a map with a big bog in the middle, and you would walk slower on the bog, or maybe you lose HP when you walk over the bog. Something like that could be really funny.
I don't know. We might be able to do it with by mutilating and defiling the caravanserai and stealing its unit and modding that. You saw what the Mad Patter did that with a monument in the middle that heals all units that are nearby it.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, I don't know about that caravanserai. I'm not sold on the balance of the Hindustanis yet. But at least we can rip the invisible unit out of the caravanserai and mod it and use it for other cool purposes. You'd have to have an excess script, though, an external subroutine script to cycle between all the different unit types. But wouldn't that be awesome if you had like a bog in the middle that, and the path, the pathing can't even handle like normal everything's the same terrain costs. It would probably be a nightmare if it tried to have different costs for different types of terrain.
I think the pathing would not be affected that much because slower units are not pathing different than faster units, right?
I mean, you'd think, but it could be cool. It could be cool if you could build bridges too, right? There's all kinds of features that they could add that would be really cool, but they're mostly just focused on making money with additional DLCs because that's what pays the bills, which is understandable. It's just kind of unfortunate.
Yeah.
Josh says the middle would have to be the only neutral land. No, because it still tries to connect players, Ja, even with connections. The question is, do you connect players and neutral lands? You basically have the options of connect all lands or connect all player lands. And even then, sometimes
Yeah.
it would do something stupid like go through the middle to connect players on opposite sides of the map, even if there's a neutral land in the middle blocking the way.
Yeah. From what I understand, it makes a sort of a calculation. What is the most efficient path? And then it will take into account all these terrain costs. But I guess if the cost of going from one player to another, there is different paths it can choose. It will kind of generate a random path, which is very unpredictable. So even a completely green empty map, if you spawn connections between the players, you might end up with kind of weird shapes of the lines.
So Ja is saying he thinks you can connect only players to neutral lands. So it looks like we've got accumulate connections, connect all player lands, connect team lands, connect all lands, connect land same zones, create connect to non-player land. Maybe this one is the one he's talking about.
Yeah, maybe that was introduced after I started this map concept, or I tried it and it still didn't work.
Yeah, I think this is what Ja is referring to. This could be worth
mhm.
trying if you wanted to achieve
I'm
that.
looking if there is any like very early version of this, but I probably had a different name, so I can't find it. Let me see. I do have a map which was kind of inspired by all this issue with the connections being so unpredictable. So I thought, let's make a map out of that. Let's deliberately have weird connections. I'm not so good with naming my maps, so I always have to look at it.
And the fact that you've got this massive list to cycle through probably doesn't help too much.
Yeah, you don't have, and then they appear twice on in alphabetic order. You have A to Z,
I don't
and
even
then
I don't even
here will be new A to Z.
I
I
don't
don't
even
know why.
I don't even subscribe to my own map packs because it duplicates the maps that appear in that menu and it makes it just impossible for me to find stuff. Q Philip and I were able to simplify that menu significantly through the GitHub desktop. Like you would go in and you'd select a branch and you would only see in game what maps appeared in that branch um, in the GitHub application. So you could kind of customize what maps appeared and disappeared, but they'd still be stored there. So you weren't moving things. So it was kind of neat.
Oh,
I'll
I
invite you
found the
to.
map.
Oh, nice Mountain Road. I'll invite you to connect on it if you want. So a mountainous.
This should be. This is only working in 2-player. I think. So here I actually tried to use this connection as a feature of the map, which generates sort of a random road which you can follow with your trade cards and find your other peoples, and it's also connecting to the enemy. And I think it's pretty fun to have this random layout, just a bit like Black Forest. There is these kind of random connections.
Zetnus was talking about making a road out of snow to punish all those no snow people. A road that that led to your enemy or something, so that if you had the no snow mod, you wouldn't be able to find your enemy as he would be able to find
Oh,
you.
yeah, that's funny. Yeah. What is your opinion about these terrain mods actually? Because I think sometimes they can also give clues that might otherwise not be seen.
What do you mean? I
Oh,
would only see it as a disadvantage, right? Of subscribing to a mod, having it remove snow. If you had a path of snow that led to your opponent would have a better idea of where you were, and you would have less than an idea where he was. Can you give me an example?
yeah. For example, here it's not applicable to this map, but it's a good example how it shows. The player land sometimes is a different kind of grass than the middle grass. Here there is not even a middle grass.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes the difference in color of the types of grass is very hard to see. Maybe Fortress. Yeah, Fortress, for example, has the player land is always desert, and the rest is dirt.
Mm-hmm.
So desert could indicate, oh, you're close to your enemy, and if you can make that distinction more, or that difference between lands more distinct, then that could help players. Like, oh, this might be the player land that I'm facing now.
Yeah, I think there's so many other unknowns, and like there are patches of desert still. Like if you're red and you're scouting out to the right of the map, you could see desert out to the right of the map and be like, "Oh, I'm approaching my enemy's town." So go to the
Yeah, it's not applicable, and I can't really think of a real example. Maybe some custom maps that I have made for tournaments where I was like, I can make the player land of a different kind of grass, but then if players would pay attention and they see this different kind of grass, they know, oh, there is my opponent.
I don't think it's that big of a deal because like did you really need those 3 seconds difference before you kept on running, right? And you saw the actual wall. Did those 3 seconds of difference really impact your decision making to the point where
Um,
it affected the outcome of the game?
well, not on those maps, but maybe on a map like Nomad, and you're looking for a wood line. Some maps have different terrain around the wood line. Maybe Pilgrims has that. I don't know if I have Pilgrims. But then you start in a blind, and the faster you can find the wood line, the better it is. And if there is already an indication of some kind of different terrain surrounding the wood line,
Or an,
that could be crucial
or an orange
information.
box.
An orange box? What
Hey,
do you
Purple
mean?
Brave Giraffe is here. Hello and welcome. For those of you that are just joining, we've got Hank the Super Nerd. He was on Script Chat with us. He was talking about um, how to make maps that are grouped by team. And then we're just having a little bit of a chat here. He was showing one of his latest projects. I will put a link to Hank's server in the video description. We really appreciate Hank joining us today. I don't know how much more Hank has to share for now, but we can definitely have you on the show again in the future if you want, Hank, to show off some
Yeah, if
additional
I
work. Zetnus and I did a
if
session where we just talked about Red Bull Woolaloo maps and kind of mused over the potential strategies and what we liked about the maps and what we thought could be improved. So it's really just it
Mhm.
could be anything.
I think there is always lots to talk about. But yeah, maybe if I have new projects I'm actively working on, because these are also kind of things that I made in the past. So it's not everything is so fresh in the memory anymore.
All right, sure thing. Well, we really appreciate you coming on, Hank.
All
We
right.
finally did this. Folks
Yeah.
are excited, always trying to have experienced, dignified guests on the show, but also beginners too that want to show off their work. The purpose of the show is to recognize the scripting that people are doing because we've got the expertise covered, right? We have a server where people can go and ask questions and get their
Mhm.
questions answered. But what we don't really have is we don't really have a forum to show off the work that people are making. So
Yeah.
hopefully,
Yeah, and to motivate other people to just start doing stuff, because it doesn't have to be as complicated as making a map with all kind of connections. You can just change one line and have all players spawn together in a team like I have made these maps. Yep.
All right, guys. So everybody say thanks to Hank the Super Nerd for joining us, and we look forward to speaking with him again and following the projects that he's working on.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you so much, Hank, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Okay, so we're going to move on to the next segment of the show, which are questions. If anybody has any questions, we can bring up their script and we can see if we can help them out, help answer some questions that they might have. I think I saw Same Do here in the chat. It's the first one. That's the only rule. It doesn't matter who you are as long as you're here. We will do what we can to help you out and answer any questions that you might have. So let us see if we can pull up his script. Okay. One Pond's Crater is what it's called. So let us download that, and we will put it right here in our general folder for now. And One Pond's Crater, One Pond's Crater, One Pond's Crater. Finding it. Okay, here we go. Paste that in. And now when we back out and go back in again, should be able to find it. Okay. Oh, look at that. It appears right at the start. Perfect. Ah, okay. I see. I see. Well, this just won't do, huh? So he wants the it's like 4 lakes, but in the center you've got this crater. Ah, okay. All right. Are you there, Same Do? I think I've got some ideas. Let me step away real quick. I'll be right back. And we'll see what we can help, if we can help Same Do out with this little weird trench there that's in the corner. That just won't do. Okay, I'm back, guys. He wants to fix the water. I don't blame him. So let's pull up, we don't need lake demonstration anymore, but let's pull up One Pond's Crater. Alright, I don't know what any of that is. So we got water. What the heck? Oh man, I don't understand any of this. They are using borders though. Create player lands. Layer A, leaves, etc. Alright. I'll tell you what. Let's actually go to lake demonstration. I think that would be easier. And we'll show what to do here. So we'll get rid of this. So I have to try to figure out what same dude did. When you start calling, I think Voda means water or something like that in some foreign language. Let's do one ponds crater. Let's do lake demonstration. So the challenge is accepted. Create a crater in the center of the map. Oops. Our base size is way too large. That's right. I forgot that we had changed that. But we could do that easily enough. So we'll change this back to 20 for now. We're not going to constrain it with borders right now. We don't need to. But that could be done. Okay, there's 4 lakes. So we need a crater in the center. So let us create a land for that. Create land. I think it has something to do with how elevation and base elevations are done. Land position would be 50-50. And we could actually constrain it with borders. That might be the best choice. So we'll try to do land percent 100 then. It'll fail. And we're going to specify no base size at all. The terrain type is going to be DLC cracked. Top border, maybe 40. Bottom border, 40. Left border, 40. And right border, 40. So now, we should get that DLC cracked terrain here. And we could make the player lands equivalent to dirt, and then elevate them as well. So let us do a base size of 0 for the player lands. And maybe land percent of 0 as well. So they're very small. We might have to bump that up a little bit. Okay, and the... Oh, shoot. I changed the wrong things here. I changed the lakes. We want base size 0, land percent 0, terrain type dirt. Okay, so now it should look like it fits in a little bit better. There we go. We could even maybe pull those player lands in. And actually this, that might be a little bit big, I think. So we could maybe like 43. Avoid each of these borders by 43% of the edge of the map. Save. There we go. All right, and then we can make it elevation 7. Terrain type dirt, base elevation 7. Whoops, that is not what we want. We do not want to generate Lombardia. Okay, and so the town center can't spawn on this because it's not big enough for the town center to spawn on. So now we will elevate dirt. So we will come over here to elevation generation, and we will create elevation 7. Number of clumps 9320. Number of tiles 10,000, 100,000, million, whatever. Set scale by size, I think, and then enable balanced elevation. Terrain type, we want to elevate dirt. All right, let's see how that works for us. Okay, maybe I need to use base terrain. Okay, so we need the base of these player lands to grow a little bit. It looks like they are correctly being elevated. We could actually, he wants these lakes to be elevated too. If I generate the original one, let's just check. I think the lakes are elevated on that. I forgot. Sorry about that. One pond's crater. Now, as to why the ponds are elevated or filled in, but the crater is not, I'm not really sure. Maybe they got some pumps in there. So that's no problem. We can come here to base elevation 7. We can do that for all of them. Oops. We want lakes. Lake demonstration. There we go. Did not elevate. Did we not save properly? Put this in the beginning. Okay, and let's check the guide, although it should be correct because we've got base elevation here. Terrain type water. Actually, we'll put it here. Oops. Terrain type water. Terrain type water. So we'll get rid of this. Okay, save. Okay, so now that's all nice and pretty in line. Make sure that it's visible what we're doing. Okay, it doesn't want to elevate it for whatever reason. All right. We'll try a different type of terrain. Try with elevation generation on water terrain. No, 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 no. So we'll elevate like DLC Gravel Beach. We'll try DLC Gravel Beach. You never want to elevate water. It's asking for trouble. Okay, so the DLC Gravel Beach is elevated properly to elevation 7. And let us increase the base size of these player lands now. Maybe base size of 5 or something like that. And it still needs to be a little bit larger. So maybe like base size of 10. Okay, there we go. So it remains to be seen. I don't think that will interfere too much with the lands in the corner, but you could always tweak it or adjust it. Yeah, in this case it is spilling into it a little bit. So let's try decreasing it to 8, just because this is the worst case situation that's ever going to be in, right? The smallest map size is this size. You do get the unusual unevenness there. So I think we need it at least 9. Okay, and then in this case it's intersecting with the pit a little bit. So maybe we push it out slightly. Maybe like 27. 25 is quite small. A little bit more. Maybe like 30. There we go. Okay, and of course we could go into terrain generation. We create terrain, and now we could create water. Oops. Base terrain, DLC Gravel Beach, land percent 100, space and other terrain types 1, and number of clumps 9320, and then we'll set scale by size. We don't have to do that, but there we go. Now these lakes in the corners I think could be cleaned up with borders. That would give probably a little bit more consistent of a lake generation. This is fun though. I like fun lakes. We might need to grow the base size for the player town centers just a little bit. The other thing that we could do is we could decrease the elevation, and that would decrease the requirement. So for example, if we did this all at elevation 5 and we kept this same seed, but let's say that we did it at elevation 5 and these were created at elevation 5, base elevation 5. That unevenness should go away because it'll, well, maybe not. It should decrease the cost of like all that spacing there. But I think this should be fine for you anyway, because if you've got elevation 5, this will still give you the opportunity to have additional hills and stuff around the map. So you could like create elevation 7, base terrain dirt. You could have number of tiles be equal to like 1,000 and number of clumps be equal to like 30 or something. Is BP joining to help? I haven't seen BP today. So you could do something like this. Wanted to just randomly create hills across the map, right? So I will upload this script to the GitHub repository. Are you just and I would encourage you, same do, if you want to join us there. I would encourage you to make an account and come code with us and make maps with us, because you know you're killing yourself, man. You got people that have a lot of experience with random map scripting kind of help you out. I think this is a fun concept, though, for sure. But you're absolutely welcome. You know, don't I am more than happy. And I just happened to suggest ScriptChat because I was literally doing it the next day. But you know, we've got a lot of great people in that repository, and we're happy to collaborate with you and help you out. Because there's no reason you should spend 6 hours like trying to fight with elevating water. You know, like it shouldn't be that hard. Now we've got a little bit of an elevation aberration there, but when you consider that there's elevation across the rest of the map, it doesn't really matter anymore. So I will upload this to the GitHub repository. And again, you know, it started from scratch. Like it's literally maybe 30 lines at most, probably more like 15 lines that are doing this. There's no need to copy all of this stuff, and all of these include DRS and stuff like that. That's very, because you don't really know what's in there, right? That's why I always get kind of scared doing those include DRS files. All right, any other questions that we can help folks with today? And this is actually a great question because it like took the example that we gave about how to do 4 lakes at the beginning of the show, and it dialed up the difficulty level slightly, so we had to think about it a little bit more, and then ultimately we were able to solve it. If you wanted this to be cracked terrain, then you could use terrain layering to convert any dirt that's below a certain elevation into DLC cracked. So you know we could come into our terrain generation, could copy that over, and we could create terrain DLC cracked base terrain from dirt. And then this is all good. No need for space and other terrain types. Set scale by size is fine. And then we could do like height limits from 0 until 4. And then that will convert all of this to cracked terrain here. So, although it looks like it reaches over here too, so maybe we better make it 0 to 3. Of course, we could also tell it, though, to set avoid player start areas by, let's say, 15. And that should have the same effect. So it's all cracked terrain in here, but the cracked terrain doesn't come here because it's avoiding the player starting areas. So these absolute base sizes, the story for that will get better as the map grows larger. Is Doc Maggie here? Says he made a maze generator, but he has some issues with resource spawning. We'll see if we can get in touch with Doc and answer his question, but I don't see him right now. So it looks like we're closing here at the the top of the hour. It is 19 GMT, 2 p.m. East U.S. time. Been at it for 2 hours. The 13th of November 2022. I'm starving, but we've had a great session today. We opened up with demonstration, a little bit of discussion about how the lakes are done on 4 lakes versus Kawasan. Talked about some of the clocking issues that players could experience on 4 lakes. I don't think it's that big of a deal. You know, you just have to be more flexible, but I get it. Players like to plan for their civ selection. And we talked about how Kawasan is different and how it sort of addresses maybe that concerns with Four Lakes. We talked about how the lakes are generated as a second set of player lands, so that they're always guaranteed to basically be the same number of lakes, but clocked to be in between the players. And we talked about the quirks and the advantages and disadvantages of doing that. And then we had Hank the Super Nerd join us, and we talked about some of his creations. Most specifically, we talked about how he is adapting a lot of the classic maps to team style and some of the challenges that come with that, but also some opportunities. And then finally, we to wrap it all up, we went back to Same Do, and we answered his question about how to make a tricky Four Lakes map that has a pit in the middle, a fusion between Golden Pit and Four Lakes. So we had a great session. Thank you everybody so much for being here. You guys make the show possible, and you give me motivation to keep talking about random map scripts, because I definitely think the content is there. So with that, I would say thank you very much to everybody, and I bid you farewell, and I look forward to seeing you next week, and who knows, I'll probably be around in the server and stuff, so if you guys need anything, just hit me up, and we'll set you up right to make your scripting dreams come true. So see you guys, and hopefully we'll be back soon.